First of all, what is metabolic health? What is a healthy metabolism? A healthy metabolism is a state where your body can get energy from the food, store excess energy in your body when it is needed for a future use. For liver damage, the first biomarker which you should take is not ALT, it should be GGT, because GGT rises years before ALT rises. A person consumes more glucose through food, the pancreas pumps out more insulin. As a result, the fat becomes insulin resistant, liver becomes insulin resistant, our heart and muscle also any muscle becomes insulin resistant. As a reason, they require more and more insulin to be produced for the glucose to go into these tissues. So once again, more insulin being produced results in lack of a hunger drive. Over a period of 2 to 3 decades, you can develop stroke, you can develop MI, you can develop renal failure or lung pulmonary issues also. Everywhere there is a vessel which is supplying the body, they go for diabetic microangiopathy changes. So this is the end results. We are not fasted for most of our life. I would say 12 to 14 hours of our life, we are eating something. So we should test how our body reacts to eating. Second is put you in whether you are insulin resistant, you can do it by getting HOMA-IR. It's a ratio between fasting glucose and fasting insulin. And whether your pancreas is working, you can do it by
Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world, we are generating more health data than ever before. The real challenge is knowing which biomarkers truly matter and how they can help us make better decisions for long-term health. Helping us navigate this rapidly evolving space is Dr. Arun Kumar Govindarajan, a radiologist and visionary healthcare entrepreneur who is helping shape the future of diagnostics and prevent healthcare in India. He serves as the Executive Director of Aarti Scans and Labs, India's largest chain of integrated diagnostic centers. Over the past decade, he has successfully combined clinical expertise with strategic leadership to build one of India's most impactful healthcare networks. Driven by a passion for preventive health and longevity, he also founded Vital Insights, a startup focused on health intelligence, performance optimization, and personalized healthcare. His work sits at the intersection of diagnostics, longevity science, and data-driven wellness, helping people move from reactive healthcare to proactive healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together in warmly welcoming Dr. Arun Kumar Govindarajan.
First of all, I would like to say thanks to Mr. Shivashankaran sir and Aiwo family for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to the Aiwo physio team as well. So what's a metabolic summit without moving your muscles? We were not moving our muscles for the last 3-4 hours. So good to have the muscles back in action. So what Dr. Joy Verghese did, what Dr. Arun sir did, what Dr. Gondaraman sir did is take you to the forefront of what's happening now. GLP-1, bempedoic acids, they took you to how to prescribe GLP-1, what are the contraindications, what's the forefront in liver science as of now. So we're not going to take a back seat. So back seat in the sense we are going to go back to the basics, the first year of MBBS. So we are going to learn more about biochemistry here. So talking about biochemistry, I'm really happy to be talking about biomarkers and biochemistry in front of two of the stalwarts in biochemistry. Dr. Ganeshan sir is here. I wasn't expecting Ganeshan sir to be here and talking biomarkers in front of him. So proud to be associated. So we've all seen what metabolic health does to liver, poor metabolic health does to heart, what poor metabolic health does to the whole body by Dr. Gondaraman sir. So first of all, what is metabolic health? What is a healthy metabolism? So a healthy metabolism is a state where your body can get energy from the food, store excess energy in your body when it is needed for a future use. and also convert between these energy systems, and of course produce this energy demand when the body need arises during exercise or when you put your muscles to use. So this is metabolic health. It's basically three things: taking energy from food, storing it, and then reproducing energy when needed. So this is needed. So the last two caveats are added by me. So person in prime metabolic health is someone, a human in prime metabolic health is someone who achieves all these three without having any chronic disease, without having any medication in his body, and using the least amount of insulin as much as possible. So the last two caveats are added by me. If we think there are close to some 500 odd people in this room, more than that, how many of us will fit into this criteria of metabolic health? How many of you can raise your hands and tell me that you will satisfy all of these criteria? So no chronic diseases, insulin should be below 10, below 8 to be optimal fasting insulin, and your body can shift between fat and glucose as their sources of energy as you do exercises or in fasted status. Very, very low. I can tell you that more than 98% here would not fit into this criteria. I have two of my daughters here, my two daughters here. I don't think both of them would fit into this criteria. They have insulin. I just tested one of my daughters last week. She has insulin resistance and she is just 10 years old. So I can absolutely say that 100% of us may not fit into this criteria, but this is what peak metabolic health is. This is what is achievable, humanly possible. So this was supposed to be a video. So these are three metabolic states. The first is, first two are basically a normal individual. The first is when a person has just woken up. He's in a fasted status for the last at least 10-14 hours. The second is just fed status, where our body has just consumed food. Let's say it's post-breakfast. So in the fasted status, our insulin levels are really, really low. Why? Because our glucose levels are really low. We haven't had any exogenous source of glucose in the last 10 hours. Let's say this is when you have just woken up. So your insulin is very low, your glucose is very low. At that time, what happens is your predominant energy needs to your body are supplied by fatty acids from fat cells. So we have enormous fat, adipose tissue stored within our body. So those fatty acids supply the predominant energy, fatty acids to muscles, fatty acids to even heart. The only part which requires glucose even in fasted status is our brain, for which liver supplies the glucose output. So in a just fed state, when we've just had breakfast, what happens? Blood glucose goes up. In the second slide, blood glucose goes up. Our insulin level peaks. What this insulin level tells you, tells the body is, it first of all tells the fat cells to stop producing free fatty acids. We have abundant glucose now, no need to produce fatty acids. It tells the muscles to take more glucose inside. We have abundant glucose, don't take fatty acids, take glucose. And then it tells the liver to stop producing glucose. Because at present too much glucose is coming from our gut, from digestion, you don't need to produce glucose. These are the three main stuff which insulin does. Stops free fatty acids from release from fat, stops the muscle from ingesting fat, asks the liver to produce less glucose. So in a metabolically unhealthy individual, our blood glucose levels are always high. It's always more than 120 milligrams. So our insulin levels are also always very high. So insulin resistance happens. So these three stuff which we talked about, fat, muscle and liver, goes for insulin resistance. When these muscles, when the muscles get insulin resistance, they cannot get in glucose. So more and more glucose production is necessary. When the fat cells become insulin resistant, once again, they are not stopped by insulin's command to stop producing glucose, fatty acids. So they start producing fatty acids in excess. So fatty liver happens. So how does fatty liver happen? 60% of it is mainly due to free fatty acids from the fat, unregulated fatty acids. So when fat, all the fat, adipose tissue stored in our body goes for insulin resistance at a hyperstimulated state, they go for, it results in fatty liver. because of a deposition of fatty acids and conversions to triglycerides. So this is what happens in a metabolically unhealthy individual. It's a virtuous cycle. What do I mean by virtuous cycle? So this is it. A person consumes more glucose through food. The pancreas pumps out more insulin. As a result, the fat becomes insulin resistant, liver become insulin resistant, our heart and muscle also become, any muscle becomes insulin resistant. As a reason, they require more and more insulin to be produced for the glucose to go into these tissues. So once again, more insulin being produced results in lack of a hunger drive. So this is where GLP-1 comes into play. So as we go into a hyperinsulinemia state, the amount of GLP-1 produced by our ileum and the receptor intelligence to this GLP-1 both are blunted in a hyperinsulinic state. So our GLP-1 response to the body is blunted. So our satiety levels go slow, our hunger drive increases. So we start consuming more food and the cycle repeats again and again. So some of the amplifiers for this, which can increase the speed of this cycle, catalysts, so to say, can be inflammation, poor sleep, cortisol, GLP-1 once again. And at the end, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Over a period of 2 to 3 decades, you can develop stroke, you can develop MI, you can develop renal failure or lung pulmonary issues also. Everywhere there is a vessel which is supplying the body, they go for diabetic microangiopathy changes. So this is the end results. So where do I fit in? I started talking about biomarkers. That 10 minutes have passed and I still haven't started talking about it. So this virtuous cycle, they can be detected and quantified by biomarkers. All the amplifiers once again can be quantified by biomarkers where you are there. And the end result, if you have the end results, which is end organ damage as well, can be quantified by biomarkers. So we are going to be talking about biomarkers now. When talking about biomarkers, as Indians, many of us are diabetic, most of us are insulin resistant, mainly because of the wrong biomarkers which we chose. So in 2000s, the predominant biomarker to detect diabetes was fasting blood sugar. In 2010s, the predominant biomarker to detect diabetes, and still is by many associations, is HbA1c. But this is basically, I would say we are 2 decades, we are detecting diabetes 2 to 1.5 decades after. We are basically 3 biomarkers wrong. So if you can see this in this sheet, there is each row is a healthy individual, early insulin resistant, significant insulin resistance, early diabetes and late diabetes. And the biomarkers are HbA1c, fasting blood sugar, postprandial blood sugar, insulin and C-peptide. If you can see which are the first 3 biomarkers which go up when a person develops insulin resistance is first the cheapest biomarker, which is a postprandial blood sugar. That is the first physiological biomarker which goes up along with fasting insulin when your body develops insulin resistance. But these are not part of the criteria to establish diabetes at present. These should be, because insulin resistance develops decades before you develop diabetes. The first thing you need to know is easiest test to do is fasting blood sugar plus postprandial blood sugar. You should do postprandial blood sugar. It's worth going to one more visit to the lab or asking the home collection person to come to you, mainly because we are not fasted for most of our life. I would say 12 to 14 hours of our life, we are eating something. So we should test how our body reacts to eating. Second is put you in, whether you are insulin resistant, you can do it by getting HOMA-IR. It's a ratio between fasting glucose and fasting insulin. And whether your pancreas is working, you can do it by cystatin, C-peptide. So C-peptide and insulin, what's the relation here? So to guess pancreatic function, we should test for insulin, not insulin, but C-peptide, because pro-insulin is first secreted by pancreas. Pro-insulin splits into insulin and C-peptide. Insulin goes to liver, as Dr. Joy was telling. It goes to liver, there it is metabolized. Whatever insulin which we are measuring in blood is not the actual insulin produced by the pancreas. Because it is metabolized by the liver and its quantity reduces. So to measure the actual pancreatic function, you have to measure C-peptide, not insulin. So going to some of the catalysts, for inflammation, you need to measure 3 biomarkers, which is hsCRP, fibrinogen and ferritin. hsCRP is the easiest one. It can tell you whether your body has low grade inflammation. But as you know, as you see, we should go back to the beginning. There is one more biomarker called IL-6, which I have not included since we are talking about low-grade inflammation. Why? Because IL-6 has a half-life of less than 4 hours. HSCRP, it is 19 hours. Fibrinogen, it's 4 days, and for ferritin, it's weeks. So when you measure a biomarker which has a very, very low half-life, let's say HSCRP of 19 hours, when you wake up, your body is less inflamed. So you're measuring your body at a point when it is least inflamed. So you're measuring a compound which has a very, very low half-life. So always go for a combination of low half-life and a high half-life. So I would suggest doing at least HSCRP and ferritin. In an anemic patient, any elevated ferritin is the result of low-grade hepatic insulin resistance. So always measure these 2 biomarkers or 3 biomarkers in continuum. So as far as organ damage, already most of them are neatly put by Dr. Arun, Dr. Joy, and Dr. Gondanaraman sir. So I would like to point the main biomarkers. For liver damage, the first biomarker which you should take is not ALT, it should be GGT, because GGT rises years before ALT rises. So once again, back to biochemistry, ALT is stored within the cytoplasm of hepatocytes. It's in the cytosol. So only when this cytoplasm breaks, when the membrane rupture happens, when a hepatocyte goes for cell death, we can see ALT rise. GGT is basically a secreted micro enzyme when hepatocytes goes for oxidative stress. So this is secreted. GGT is secreted in relation to hepatic oxidative stress. Whereas ALT is only secreted years after when a hepatocyte actually goes for death. So always measure GGT first. FIB4 score is actually a simple ratio which we can calculate by basic biomarkers. As Dr. Arun told, always do ApoB first. I would suggest not even taking a look at LDL cholesterol or VLDL cholesterol, because in LDL cholesterol and VLDL cholesterol, back to biochemistry, it's once again we are measuring only the density of cholesterol in LDL particles. We are not measuring the actual number of LDL particles, we are not measuring the actual number of VLDL particles. It's the density which we are measuring. Density actually doesn't matter when it comes to atherosclerosis. So ApoB actually measures the number of ApoB containing particles in your blood, which is more meaningful when it comes to atherosclerosis. So always measure ApoB. Homocysteine is basically a endothelial disruptor. It can happen in vitamin B12 and folate deficiency. Measure that. It's a direct chemical inhibitor. For renal damage, I would suggest looking at both cystatin C as well as urine creatinine. So as we can all see in the last 1.5 years, we've been having a fitness wave popping in. Everyone takes creatine, everyone takes whey protein, everyone takes everyone does most of them have started doing resistance training. In those cases, creatine can be falsely elevated even when your kidney is normally functioning. So always check cystatin C. Cystatin C measures the glomerular function. Creatine only measures the tubular function, tubular excretion and excretion. So measure that. Urine ACR once again is the first molecule to go up in urine when renal tubules started excreting more proteins than necessary. As far as hormone axis is concerned, you should definitely measure cortisol and DHEA. So back to biochemistry, cortisol and DHEA, both of them have one primordial molecule. It's called pregnenolone. So both cortisol and DHEA fight for pregnenolone's presence. So if we are more stressed, if we are insulin resistant, cortisol goes up and it takes up all the pregnenolone. So DHEA production will not be possible. So what is downstream of DHEA? Downstream of DHEA, we have testosterone, we have estrogen, lot of aromatic compounds. When DHEA is not produced by adrenal gland because cortisol takes up all the pregnenolone, you go for a metabolic insufficiency. Basically, you have high cortisol and low DHEA. Same for thyroid as well. TSH can be normal, free T4 can be normal, T3, T4, both of them can be normal. But in insulin resistance, the cells, the end product, which is free T3 is the actual active form of thyroid hormone. In insulin resistance individuals, in peripheral cells, T4 to T3 conversions doesn't happen. This is the actual pathology, and we are not measuring free T3 and free T4 in many of the patients. So if you actually want to measure physiological peripheral thyroid presence, euthyroid station, you should stop measuring TSH, you should measure, but you should obviously start measuring free T3 and free T4 to get the actual status. Same for testosterone and SHBG as well. While measuring testosterone, always measure your free testosterone levels as well. That's the active bioactive form, not testosterone. You can have high testosterone and low free T if you have a hepatic insulin resistance, where your SHBG levels can go up and bind to testosterone. My favorite topic, I'm a radiologist after all. So imaging biomarkers. At present, we have a lot of imaging biomarkers to measure GLP-1, to measure metabolic health. Using a DEXA scan, we can measure ALMI, your appendicular lean mass index, your body fat, better than impedance biometry. Using MRI and CT, we can now exactly measure the amount of liver fat, the amount of visceral fat as well. You can actually measure the amount of visceral fat, and you can actually measure the psoas muscle volumetry as well using MRI and CT. The software and AI is already available. So Dr. Arun said that he wanted to measure epicardial fat. So epicardial fat in CT and MRI is at present measurable as well. So Dr. Godandaraman sir has already covered what needs to be done for a GLP-1 prescription. Just a short thing. So when you are prescribing GLP-1, you need to know about 3 buckets. What are the contraindications? What are the documentations which are necessary? And what are the medico-legal aspects which are necessary before starting a patient on GLP-1? So first of all, the contraindications bucket, lipid profile, triglycerides more than 500, pancreatitis risk, you should not prescribe it. Amylase and lipase more, or history of pancreatitis, you should not prescribe GLP-1. History of thyroid cancer, medullary cancer in the family, you should not prescribe GLP-1. You should do a retina screening using fundoscopy to check for proliferative fundal retinopathy before giving GLP-1, all contraindications. If the patient is trying to get pregnant, you should stop GLP-1 at least 4 months before, better to have a day. And documentation wise, you should have, documentation is basically why the patient requires GLP-1 and whether you are showing improvement when the patient is on GLP-1. So you should measure all the glycemic markers, all the inflammation markers. You'll have to put everything in a bunch and show improvement to the patient that you are performing well. Medico-legally, you should also have a ECG, at least a ECG and a CBC before doing the GLP-1. Post GLP-1 prescription, once again 3 buckets. First of all, a safety first. The safety is for the doctor as well as the patient. You need to be safe before, and the patient needs to be safe. So you need to measure amylase and lipase to check pancreatic activity. In GLP-1, the heart rate can go by 5 to 10 beats, but if it goes anything above, you are overdosing the patient, reduce the titration. Once again, the blood pressure drops in GLP-1. If the patient is already on antihypertensives, reduce it. Measure the potassium electrolyte levels because the patient can go for nausea and vomiting. Same for efficacy and titration, the same ones which needed the documentation. Muscle health, fasting blood glucose, lipid profile, everything to document the stuff. And in GLP-1, a patient stops, actually way the treatment works is the patient stops taking less food, stop taking more food. So with less food comes a micronutrient deficiency. Everything from vitamin D, calcium, vitamin B12, iron and ferritin, they can go for deficiency 4 months, 5 months, 6 months into therapy. So you need to keep on measuring that. The most important thing is don't measure folate and magnesium levels present in the serum. So the liver's role is basically to make them constant. So by the time magnesium levels and folate level goes down in serum, it's very, very low. So start measuring it like how you measure HbA1c. Measure the RBC folate, measure the RBC magnesium levels. That's basically 3 months of magnesium stores you are measuring, not the daily presence of magnesium and folate. So once again, thank you. My final message would be insulin resistance is a decades-long thing. It takes decades before early diabetes or diabetes develops. So anytime you can intervene, it's easier for the patient and you also. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the valuable insights, Doctor. And we request Dr. R.M. Bhupati, neurologist of Apollo Hospitals, to kindly join us on stage and do the honors. Welcome, sir.